So, because both of us have to run to do other panels immediately after, and I'm sure you do as well, right? There's so much packed into this weekend. So this is going to be the first time we have done this format. I'd like to introduce this amazing man. He's an investigator, he's a researcher, he's an educator, he's a demonologist. For real. Let us welcome to the stage here at MEGACON Orlando 2024, Bill Slevin! We're going to try something interesting. So normally we've done many panels together over the years, Bill and I, but it's more like a question-answer kind of a thing. And then last year, Bill was, so you guys do like these theatrical things? I'm like, yes, that's what we do. And did you ever think maybe doing some of my stories? And that was a tasty little morsel. So Bill has sent us a number of his stories. We have 3 in particular we're going to be doing for you today, including his very first case. Yes, let me hear that then. Let's try that again. His very first case. Yes. And it is an ooh, I will tell you that. So I'll be doing readings of these. Now remember, when I'm saying I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about Bill. Because I don't do this stuff, he does. I just fake it. And then in between, we're going to get to ask questions. So you're going to hear actually what happened. And these are 100% true. This is not a fiction. This is not doing Edgar Allan Poe. This is, well, he's real too, but no. But these are true to life stories from Bill's life. This is the man who went through these things. So let us begin at the beginning, as they say. Bill Slevin, this is your life. My first case, my journey begins. This is what everything had been leading up to. So many days and nights spent studying and researching. Solo investigations, countless cemeteries and abandoned buildings. Everything was leading up to this day, a day I've been waiting many years for. My first residential case. It would also be the day that would change my life forever and haunt me till the day I die. It was June 1st, 1989, and I received a call from a good friend of mine that knew a group of investigators who were short one person for their upcoming residential investigation. They had asked him if he knew anyone or would want to come with them because one of their team members was sick and would not be able to be part of this investigation. He told them he was definitely not interested, but that he had a friend who had been studying a lot about ghosts but had never been on a residential investigation before. The team founder, Mike, asked me if I would be interested in helping and getting some experience at the same time. I quickly and gladly agreed. I never thought I would get to do a residential case. They told me the address and time they wanted me to meet them, and I anxiously awaited for that day. My mind was going 100 miles a minute. June 4th, 1989, finally came, and I pulled up to this house. I was expecting some spooky, creepy-looking place, but this was a 2-floor, normal-looking home from any neighborhood in New Jersey. I got out of the car and walked over to meet the team leader, Mike, and one of his members, John. They mentioned this was their first time at the actual location, as they could only talk with the client by phone, so they weren't 100% sure what to expect. The only person that lived at this house was a sweet older lady. If I remember correctly, she was 83, quite full of life, but you could see the fear in her. They explained that all of a sudden she had been experiencing things that scared her, things she had never experienced before. She would constantly see shadows out of the corner of her eye, and would hear someone that sounded like her own mother calling her name. Oh, good, it's only on one side. She also noticed items in the house being moved, finding her keys in the kitchen when she knew she remembered putting them in the foyer when she walked in the door. She started to think maybe she was going a little crazy, perhaps senile, but then it started to progress, and she would see things move and fall off of the counter, items coming out of the cabinets falling to the floor. Then she started to hear a very evil voice, as she described it. At this point, I was learning about people's abilities as psychics and mediums, but I had no idea what an empath was, or that I was one. I just knew at times I felt strange and uncomfortable. At this point, the sun was going down as we walked up to the house. The woman, Mary, was already out of the house walking to us. She was very anxious to have us there, but also a little scared of us, I think. Or maybe it was now real, and she was scared about what we may find. She told us she turned all the lights off already and that she was going to stay next door with her neighbor until we were done. Now my nerves were getting to me a bit, as this was the first time I would be investigating someone's home, and also with people I didn't know. I wanted to do a good job and hopefully help this lady, but I also wanted to impress Mike and John so they would maybe ask me back for another investigation, as it was hard to find people who actually did this. We walked up to the front door, opened it, and walked inside. We were inside a foyer area of the home, with a room to our right, stairs going up to the left, and a living room straight ahead. We stood there for a minute, and then, without saying a word, all three of us ran out of the door, onto the front lawn, gagging and nauseous. I had never felt like this before. The three of us sat for a moment, gathered ourselves, and headed back in for another try. This time it was different. We smelled nothing, and nothing was getting any of us sick. So we started to make our way straight ahead into the living room. John was on my right, and he was running the video camera, which back then was not very small. It was a very large camera that he had mounted on his right shoulder. Mike was on my left with an old cassette tape recorder. As we stood there for about 3 minutes, just taking in the energy of the room, I started to feel extremely uncomfortable. The air felt heavy to me. I became angry. I had no idea what I was feeling and why, but I did know something was about to happen. Then we heard this god-awful growl as the room turned cold and John screamed so loud and threw his camera lens to the floor, not caring at all about destroying it. We threw on the lights and he was screaming and clawing at the top of his shirt. We ran over to help him and we pulled his shirt off, still screaming, and tried to reach his back. As he turned away from us, we saw what he was screaming about. And I think Mike and I stood frozen for a few seconds. John had 3 razor-thin scratch marks down his back, running from the base of his neck all the way down his back to the bottom of his spine. We just stared for a minute. I'd never seen anything like this. The scratches were as if someone took a razor blade down his back, perfect, and bleeding. At this point, we still were lost at what just happened, but we knew we had to get out of that house and get John some medical attention. We stood outside, catching our breath, and arguing with John, who was too scared to go to the hospital, afraid that if they asked what happened, he would be locked up. At this point, he put his shirt back on carefully, and we went next door to get Maggie. She was surprised that we were so fast and actually looked relieved until we told her the news that something was not right and we needed additional help to figure this out. We convinced her she should not stay in the house as it was too dangerous for her health. We cautiously helped her get some things and helped her next door to stay with her neighbor for a few days. They told me they believed this was a rare demonic case and that there is no way we could handle this, so they needed to get help from the clergy. I could not believe that on my first ever residential case, it was turning out to be a dangerous, possible demonic one. The drive home was long, and my mind was racing with so many questions. Why was this happening to this nice old lady? What did we smell at the beginning that made us sick? What was it trying to tell us? What was that growl that happened right before John screamed? But the biggest and most mind-boggling question I was asking over and over was, why did it attack John and not Mike or me? I sat by the phone, waiting to hear from someone about the case. I was so interested in what was to come next. And finally, I received a call from Mike saying they have a priest coming to bless the house and deliver the minor rite of exorcism to help clear the house. But unfortunately, their other teammate was better and wanted to be back on the case. They thanked me for helping that night and said they would contact me if they needed someone in the future. I was disappointed, but I'm still grateful that I got this experience. As far as I know, the blessing worked just fine and everything had stopped. But after a few months, I lost touch with them and never heard anything about the case after that. This case will forever live on in my memory as one of the most frightening nights, but rewarding at the same time. And this was really my big push into becoming a paranormal investigator and later a demonology specialist. Most people would have run for their lives after something like this and never do it again. But not me. It made me that much more curious. I wanted to know more. Now, don't get me wrong. I was scared shitless in that house. You never forget anything you experience on a demonic case. It actually haunts you forever. The end. Now remember, that's not me. That's this gentleman over here. So we want to ask questions in between each of these. Now, we're going to learn about these cases, but we want to ask questions. So I'm going to ask for the first one. It's a clarity question. So you talked about blessings. You talked about blessings of the house. Later on in some of the other stories, you talk about blessing the personnel who are going into the house. And you also talk about the minor rite of exorcism. Can you help define that for us a little bit and what their uses are?
Yeah, so there's different things when it comes to demonic cases. They can do full exorcisms, which is when the person is actually possessed. But if it's not at that stage yet, and it's in the oppression stage, and it's just in the house, they will a lot of times come and do a minor rite of exorcism, which is more like a glorified blessing. It's not just they come in and bless you. They do a full, it's about maybe 20 minutes long, but they might do it 14 times while you're in there. They have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until they feel it is gone. It's a little different than the full exorcism can take hours, days, sometimes months or years. But this was just something that I wish I would have been there for this, but it was like I said, it wasn't my case. They brought me in on it, but it's a little different. I was involved in them later on, which you'll hear, which I got to witness it. But it was something to see because, like I said, it was my first case, and these type of cases are very rare. I've done close to 1,000 residential cases in the 35 years I've been doing this, and I've had maybe, I think it's seven proven demonic cases, and maybe 10 or 15 others that we weren't sure of. So I get called in to actually help determine if they're demonic.
Nice. I had an odd question, and it came out of our panel yesterday. So, religion. The blessing of the individuals going in, the blessing of the house. What if somebody is an atheist? What if somebody is agnostic? What if they don't believe in that particular religion? You know, I'm going in and, you know, I study Islam, and instead there's a Catholic priest there. How does that work for the person who is either secular or a non-believer or a believer in a different religion?
Right. Well, it's a little tricky sometimes because I was raised Catholic. I studied Catholic demonology. And a lot of people believe that only a Catholic priest can perform an exorcism. But almost in every religion, they have some sort of exorcist. Jewish faith doesn't believe in demons. They believe in divots, which are evil spirits. So it depends. It's kind of specific to each case. If the person doesn't mind whoever comes in, just wants to get rid of it, a lot of times, like for me, it will be called in with a Catholic priest. But if they specifically do not want that, or they don't believe that, and they want somebody of their faith in there, then we will call on somebody that has that, either from my team or somebody we know that can come and help. It's kind of tricky. Some of them, even if they're an atheist or whatever, they're not going to believe anything in a way.
Right.
But it's not really on them. It's on us fighting it for them.
Nice.
Because they're in a state where they can't fight it. So they need people to help fight it out. So if we believe this, our faith is what's going to pull it out, no matter what.
So the recent film, which was not very good in my personal opinion, The Exorcist. They had multiple religions there during the exorcism. Is that more common than we think?
Yeah. I mean, it's common, but it is mostly Catholic when it comes to exorcism.
Nice.
But again, it's depending on the case.
Bravo. Any questions for Bill on this first case? You know, we can ask questions in between all of them. Yes, right over here.
How do you determine whether or not an entity is demonic?
If it's demonic, there's a lot of different ways we do it. First, we do a lot of talking to the people. We sit down with them. We talk face to face. We learn everything about them, and we study them. We watch their eyes. We watch their movements. We watch their reactions to things. Then with spirit, you could go in and cleanse the house and get rid of the spirit. With demon, it's not like that. We have to use religious provocation to provoke them. Pull out a cross, bless them with holy water, say a prayer. It will make them come out and react. So we may pull out a cross, but we also test. We may pull out a bottle that says holy water and bless them with it, and it's tap water to see their reaction. If it's burning and it's tap water, we know either they're playing us or maybe they have a mental illness. You know, so there's a very fine line between a possession and a mental illness too. So, and it can be both. So it's very particular. We have a lot of actual tests that we do. They'll bless with oil. There's a lot of different things we do. It takes a while. It's not like a 5-minute thing. It takes a while to really study them because you want to make sure, because if they have a mental illness and somebody starts a minor rite of exorcism on them, you could damage them. Because what we're doing is not going to fix their illness, and now they're going to think they're possessed. So you could really, really damage them. So it's a very tricky process, and you need a few different people in there to make sure, because we all can make mistakes.
Well, any other questions on the first one? Yeah, come over here.
Did you ever figure out why that one guy was the only one?
I wish I didn't. It wasn't my case, you know. And one thing I want to point out when he was reading, if that happened, this was in 1989.
Yeah.
If that happened today with a team I didn't know, I would not believe it unless I knew them very, very well because of TikTok and YouTube and everything. I would not believe that was real. But back then, nobody was talking about that. He would not even go to the hospital. You know, he did not want to, because people back then would think you were crazy. My own family would have thought I was crazy if I told them what I did.
And when you think, that's 40 years ago or so, right? The world has changed and things have normed in very interesting ways when it comes to the paranormal. Now it's accepted. Back then, you were looked at as a loon when you believed in stuff. You know, it was fascinating.
And I work in a psychiatric facility. I'm an IT director, but I work in a psychiatric facility. So I've learned a lot about addiction and mental illness and everything, which helps.
Take one more question, only because we want to get to the other stories. I'm going to get you next. I'm going to get this person now, if that's okay. Yeah, I'm going to get you first. Yes, go.
Okay. How did you feel after the first encounter with it? Like, right after the team and you guys left the house and you were driving home, how did you feel other than maybe shaken up? Were you, like, maybe excited? Like, not excited.
At the very
in a
beginning?
good way? Yeah, at the very beginning. No,
so
like at the end.
At the end.
At the end, on your way home.
I had a very mixed. I was feeling very strange as I said, I didn't know what an empath was back then. I didn't know I was one. I just knew I would go in places, even like family parties and stuff, and I would feel emotions of people. I didn't know. I felt very strange when he came out of there. But like he was reading that, I had so many questions. Like the main thing really was, why did it attack him? I didn't know anything about protection back then. I went into this house like, hey, yeah, this is gonna be fun, you know. So I had a very mixed, you know, luckily it wasn't something that came after me or came back with me and sat with me, but it is something you'll never ever forget when you see these things. Those scratches were like razor blades, and it was not through his shirt. His shirt was not touched. They were just under there. So you have a mix of emotions. I'll tell you this: the guy that got scratched never went back and did this ever again. He was completely freaked out.
All right, I'm going to move on to a second story, and you're going to be my first question after the second story, if that's okay. Beautiful. All right, this is journeying a little further. We move forward a number of years in Bill's career. It was a hot July afternoon back in 1995 when my friend Anthony had a potential case up in Nyack, New York, a family who were truly scared for their safety. I spoke with Paul, the father, who mentioned it was himself along with his wife Josie and their 2 children, Samantha and Jennifer, ages 11 and 13, and their 15-year-old dog that currently lived in the home, and that these things started to happen about 6 months prior. They thought nothing of it until it progressively got worse and happened more often. You could hear the fright in his voice as he explained, choking on his words with his voice cracking at times. Honest and true fear. At first they heard knocking that they could not explain, and a voice calling their names, but he just assumed natural causes. He most certainly did not jump to a ghost at first. But then it became more frequent and more aggressive. Paul hired someone to come and check for animals in their attic, yet when the pest control came to the home, they found no evidence at all of any animals but being in the attic or the walls. One Saturday, Paul and Josie were out running some errands, and when they got home, they put their shopping bags down in the living room, called the children to come get in the car, and they all went for a nice family dinner before heading back home for the night. What they saw when they got back home is what changed their minds about what was happening. Things would never ever be the same after that night. When they opened the door, they were shocked. The living room and kitchen looked like someone had broken into the home and ransacked the house. They immediately called the police, but things were very strange. Nothing seemed to be missing from the home. There was no sign of forced entry. Doors and windows were all closed and locked. However, things were thrown all around the rooms. The bags with everything they bought that day were destroyed. In the kitchen, almost everything was out of the cabinets and spread around the room, but strangely, it was not a big mess, but well organized and stacked up. Everyone, especially the children, were terrified. After this incident, nothing happened for about a month. They almost forgot the incident ever even occurred. Out of sight, out of mind, they thought. So sometime later, they were getting ready to head out on their annual family vacation. 2 nights before they were going to leave, Paul was woken up by the girls screaming from their room. He jumped out of bed and ran into their room to find them both on one bed, huddled together, screaming in fear. He tried to calm them and find out what was going on, but they just kept screaming. He searched the room, the closet, under the bed, and found nothing. He finally got them to calm down enough to talk, and they said they saw a giant monster in their room watching them. It stretched all the way to the ceiling like a giant shadow, all black. They insisted that there was nothing there. The girls joined them in their bedroom for the rest of the night. They were away for 2 weeks and had a great time. No noises, no voices. Nothing at all happened while they were away, and it was put out of their mind. Unfortunately, when they returned back from vacation, the incidents picked up, and everyone was hearing voices calling their names and hearing knocks on the doors, mirrors, windows, with no logical explanation. Now, however, these were all much louder, aggressive, constant. No one wanted to sleep alone in that house, and everyone was now huddled in the master bedroom with mattresses on the floor for the girls. A few nights later, they were awoken in the middle of the night to a loud crashing noise downstairs. Then another, then another. It sounded like a tornado was ripping through their home. Paul grabbed a golf club and started slowly to walk down the stairs once the noises had stopped. What he saw frightened him to his core. Both the living room and kitchen were completely rearranged. The furniture was stacked up on top of each other. Everything was thrown out of the cabinets and drawers, just like they saw that night when they came home from dinner. At this point, he started to believe that this could be a ghost. But what did it want? Most importantly, were they in danger? We were very excited and interested to go to this house and see what was going on. The things they were experiencing were things we had never seen before. We pulled up to a very well-kept home in a nice neighborhood. Paul greeted us and introduced us to his lovely family, who were filled with a mix of excitement and fear. Paul wanted to talk in the master bedroom, which is where they had all been sleeping and they felt most comfortable and safe. As an empath, I could feel the emotions in this room as you see mattresses on the floor, and it looks like this is the only place they are living in their home. We turned on the tape recorder and I started by saying, okay, explain everything from the beginning. The amazing thing about letting them just vent and telling us everything is that this is usually the first time they can fully explain what is going on and are relieved to just be able to tell someone everything without being judged. They began to tell their story, after which I asked if we could go look around downstairs alone, where a lot of the things had happened, just to see what we could feel. We walked downstairs into the living room, and my empath abilities kicked in as we entered. It was a strange, heavy, depressing feeling that came over me. The air was stale. There was a strange odor, like someone left food out for a while. And the thickness in the air was very strange. We headed into the kitchen and felt the same uneasiness. It was like this in most of the rooms downstairs. Anthony was unsure what to think, as he had never been part of a case that was demonic, or even possibly demonic. Strangely enough, We really didn't feel a presence or witness anything at this time. So I told Paul and his family that we would get back to them within a week, set up the next step. We did feel good that they were happy we were there. We didn't really experience anything dangerous. This was short-lived, however, as 3 days later, Paul contacted us with a new level of fear in his voice. Things had gotten worse since we were there. The noises and voices were constant, and there was an odd smell that was making everyone nauseous. And they were staying in a hotel the past 2 nights because no one wanted to be in their home. We set up for that Saturday to come by, and they would meet us at the house, and we arrived about 4:45 p.m. Anthony, myself, 4 others. We went to the living room and started to unpack some of our cameras and recorders and began to say a prayer. When this started, the house started to react. Banging noises, shaking like an earthquake. I started to do a binding blessing in the living room for extra protection and took out my holy water to bind the room. But what happened next took the breath out of all of us. A noise that was so loud it was hard to tell what it was, a mix between a scream and a growl. It came from upstairs but rang through the entire house. I continued, and then as I was on the last corner of the room, I was knocked back onto the floor as if someone punched me in the chest, and I hit the floor about 5 feet from where I was standing. I was almost knocked unconscious. As I was lying there trying to catch my breath, Anthony ran over to make sure I was okay, and he was shoved from the back right onto the floor, almost on top of me. No one knew exactly what to do, and I knew this could not be a ghost. I had never seen a ghost do anything violent like this. We gathered our stuff and escorted the family out of that house immediately. We spoke with them outside, and that is where I found out that the girls had had their friends over for a sleepover about a year ago. And one of their friends said they knew a fun game to contact spirits. Not a Ouija board, but a type of automatic writing. Things became very strange when the friend started writing in another language that no one there could understand, followed by a loud bang that scared them all. I told the family to please stay at the hotel. It was just too dangerous. Anthony knew a priest from his church that would do house blessings, and we set up with Paul at times to go to the house with this priest. When we arrived at the home, I had a strange, eerie feeling before we even entered the home. When we entered, it was just myself, Anthony, the priest, Paul, and his wife, Josie. The children were staying with someone as it was too dangerous for them to be there. We proceeded into the living room, where the foul, rotting type odor was now very strong, and the heaviness and depressive feeling was undeniable. The priest said he believed already that this was not good, and he decided he was going to do a minor rite of exorcism in the home, based on what we already felt and from what we had told him. As we stood in the room and set out a video camera and tape recorders, the priest told us that all we needed to do was to remain calm during everything, do not run, or do anything to stop what could possibly happen. We were all positioned around the room in all different areas. Paul and Josie were at the entrance to the kitchen. Myself and Anthony were across the room by the wall at the front of the house. The priest was by the entrance to the living room from the hallway. He started to pray in Italian and began the minor rite of exorcism. The events that happened next will sit with me for the rest of my life. A small orb started to form in the middle of the room. I had read about these, but had never seen one till now, as they are very rare. Everyone thinks that they see orbs, but 99.99% can be explained naturally. True orbs are very different, and are believed to be a ghost or a demon trying to manifest itself by pulling all the energy in the room to appear. The orb started out about the size of a golf ball. It was a solid, three-dimensional ball of energy, as you could see the light that was coming from it. Then it slowly floated around the room, almost as if it was examining us. Over a period of 15 minutes or so, it slowly grew bigger as it pulled more energy from the room. You could feel the energy being pulled as our hair was standing up. The cameras and recorders died, and the lights were flickering. It was now about the size of a softball as it continued to move around the room, sometimes coming very close to us. The priest paid no mind to it and continued his prayer. Then all at once, Josie screamed, and then it looked like as if she was about to pass out, and Paul turned to grab her as we thought she was going to fall over. But then we realized she was actually levitating about a foot off of the ground. At the same time, the orb got increasingly aggressive and began moving quickly around the room, and then from the back corner of the room, right in front of me, it expanded into a giant black shadow. A figure that went from the floor to the ceiling. It immediately turned into a mist or smoke, and then quickly disappeared. Josie fell to the floor on the couch to my right, lifted a couple of feet off the ground, and flew across the room and smashed into the far wall, just missing the priest. Within a minute or so, the priest had finished the minor rite of exorcism, and you could feel the house change. The smell was gone. The heaviness was gone, and the eerie feeling, except for what had just happened, was gone. We quickly went to check on Josie, and she was fine, but had no recollection of what had just happened. The priest explained that this was a demonic infestation in the home, and was working its way to the next stages to try and possibly possess someone. The orb was in fact the demon trying to manifest itself and stop us, but it was not powerful enough, so it tried to attack the person it felt was weakest, which was Josie. The priest truly felt it was gone, but he also told them to explain to the children to never play games like that again, as they can sometimes cause things like this. The priest told me he believed it was my calling to help people with demonic cases. Anthony decided this was not for him after this case and retired from investigating as he was too frightened about what could happen. For me, this took me down a rabbit hole that I am still to this day learning as much as I can to be able to help as many people as I can. The end.
Let's talk about orbs. But we're going to let you ask your question, dear.
I was wondering, you said you were an empath, and I was wondering what you did to train that ability or become more in tune.
Say that again, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
She was saying that you had mentioned you are an empath.
Yes.
And she was wondering what you've done to kind of train that and to build that ability in yourself.
I'm gonna get yelled at by my wife here. I've learned a bit. I haven't controlled it enough. I know how to shut it off a little bit and just kind of put it out of my mind and make some boundaries. But I still to this day need to learn a little more on how to control it, because sometimes I don't think and I do things and I can pick up things from other stuff. Like I was sick over the vacation in New Year's. We went up to St. Augustine, and on the way up, I brought my wife over to Casadega and sat in the devil's chair without thinking. And literally on the way from there back up, I got sick. I could be sick, but she swears it because I went in that chair and there was a doll on the chair and I touched it and picked it up. I don't think when I'm doing that. When I go into an investigation, I'm very prepared and I'm very protected, but I do think sometimes a little stupidly. But if you have those abilities, it's good to find like a mentor or somebody who knows it for many, many years and can teach you how to control it. Because if you have, like, I can feel the energy and the emotions of people and the dead. And if you don't know how to control it and you walk into, say, MEGACON with 100,000 people, you can lose your mind. You know, it's just like a psychic. They could come in here and lose their mind. So much energy going around. So it's something you got to learn how to control a little bit and set boundaries to like kind of know, like, don't use it, turn it off, and just be on, you know, your normal life, or else it'll mess with you all day long.
Wonderful question. Thank you. Thank you. So orbs take place in this, and we discussed this in our panel yesterday. So Bill, if you can go a little bit into why you say 99.99% of them are not actually orbs. This is important, because this is something that people see all the time. So it's important to address this.
So I'm very known for my discussion about orbs. And orbs are the things that TV and the internet have put out there because it's the easiest thing to capture on a film. So everybody talks about, everybody thinks they're spirits. Orbs, like he was explaining in the story, are actually balls of energy. It's pulling energy from the room. So they're 3D and they emit their own light. So when the things you see on TV and on the security cameras and on film, they're never transparent, they're not translucent, they're not flat, and they do not reflect light. So when you're looking at something on an infrared camera, say a Ring camera or something like that, and you see the orbs flying around, it's dust, bugs, pollen, dander, moisture, just about anything you can think of. The term orb actually came out at the birth of digital cameras, because when the first digital cameras came out, the flash was too close to the lens, and it created a reflection off of anything that was in the air. That's how orbs started. Real orbs, again, In 35 years, I've seen 3. You're gonna see them with your own eyes. They move extremely intelligently. They don't move with airflow. I've had people argue with me, no, there was no airflow in that room. Well, I don't think you live in a scientific lab because there is airflow. If you take your camera and you just go like this, filming, you have enough airflow to make dust fly around that you're not gonna see with your eyes. The cameras also, most of the security cameras, and they're called fixed focal lenses. So they cannot focus in far away or close up. They have a fixed lens. So when something comes up close to it, it can't focus, and it makes it blurry, it makes it translucent, and it makes it round. Like, spiders confuse people all the time. They will be a round orb on the camera, and the reflection from the infrared lights will bounce off and make it look bigger than it is. And it will a piece of dust will set your motion sensors off. A lot of people say, well, it detects a person, but it doesn't. It is very, very, I have never seen any on film like that I could even consider. I don't know anybody in this field that has ever captured one on film, a real one. You will see them, first of all, it pulls the energy. Our cameras went out, the batteries were dead, the recorders were dead, everything was dead. So it's something, I know a lot of people see them, they take them, ghost tours, they're gonna tell you, take pictures, use your flash, because it's gonna create orbs, you're gonna post them on site, and everybody's gonna go on the ghost tour. And I get it. I don't have anything against the TV shows. I love the TV shows. I've been on a couple of the TV shows. I go on the ghost tours. But just know the difference when you're looking. Because if you want to actually capture something, learn stuff like this so you know what you're capturing.
A question right here?
Okay, if you're looking with your eye, how would you be able to tell the difference between an orb, ball lightning, and like St. Elmo's fire?
Well, ball lightning is not something very common. Yeah, I've never seen one with my eyes like that right in front of me. I don't know if I know how to tell that. I'd say the difference is an orb is intelligent. So when that thing flew around, it's hard to tell how long it was, because to me it seemed like 10 minutes. It was probably a couple minutes. But it actually, literally came up almost right into your face and looked at you and moved away. It's a different, very, very different thing than a ball lightning. Dust, bugs, things like that, you're not going to see with your eyes in the way you do an orb on camera. You're not going to see that piece of dust in your face. So it would be, I don't know, ball lightning. Ball lightning is going to go through real quick. It's not going to hang around and move back and forth intelligently.
You also referenced St. Elmo's fire, I believe, yes.
Yeah, but it moves around like a drone would move around?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's very
Good comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I think about it.
It's very, very different.
Nice. We're going to just keep doing questions and answers right now because we're almost out of time already.
Are we?
So that other one's going to stay for our next time together.
Okay.
So other questions about this or the first story for Bill? Yes.
So do you have a book or anything of your cases?
That's what these are actually coming from.
Yeah.
I'm almost finished with it.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this year it will be out there. If you go to my booth over here in the community zone, take one of my cards, because I'll be announcing it when it comes out and everything. But these are 3 of the cases from it. The first book I'm doing is literally of my whole life and what I've done in the field. And I do it to help people. We're nonprofit. We don't charge for anything we do.
Good. Other questions for Bill? All right, then I'm going to ask a question of Bill. Oh, well, we have one back there. You take precedent, my friend.
Story, but is there any time you watch a movie or something like that and you think they just got it really wrong?
Oh, yeah.
Like Salt or...
I'm also a regional director and one of the managers that runs the Warren Legacy Foundation. So, the Conjuring movies and all that. Movies are entertainment. Of course, they're going to enhance them and make them a little different, so that you're scared and it's dramatic and whatever. But there are things that actually happen. Like that couch, never in my life would I think a couch would have picked up and flew across the room. But I'll tell you, that priest was professional. He sat there and that thing missed him by about 2 inches and he didn't even budge. We all kind of jumped back a little bit because I had never seen that, but he didn't even move. But yeah, when you watch stuff, it's tough because they're gonna change it a little bit. Like if I know some of the real stories with the Conjuring movies and the things like that. And some of them, anybody ever see The Haunting in Connecticut? Mm-hmm. Okay. Chris McKennell, who's the grandson of Ed and Lorraine Warren that I work with, that was his case. He lived with that family, I think, for 9.5 weeks. and he'll tell you the real story was far more horrific than the actual movie. He doesn't understand why they didn't use the real story. The whole story about the son having cancer and they moved into the house and it was an old funeral home, that was real. The rest of the movie was not real. And he said the stuff that went on there was way worse than what happened in the movie. So, you know, Hollywood's always going to change it to what they feel is going to sell. They're based on real stories, you know, but it's, you know, you have to know the difference in entertainment and real. But
Ratings.
yeah, of course.
Well, we are out of time, Bill. Unbelievably, it's 11:40, and we have to run to our next ones. But thank you, everyone, very much for being here. Make sure you check out Bill's. What's your booth number? 406.
CZ 407.
407. There you
Yeah.
go. So he has a whole row of them. Come see Phantasmagoria shows. We have 4 shows today. Come visit everybody here at MEGACON. We have some amazing vendors here. Thank you, everyone.
And
Thank you, everybody.
I thank you. It's such an honor. We also have a panel with my team in this room at 1:15. And I have about 6 members of my team. Some of them are from Florida, and all my Georgia teams down here are going to be talking about haunted places in Florida and Georgia and some of our experiences. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming out.